I have just finished We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. Now, I'm kind of not really sure what to think about this book. This could be a short review. I'm trying to do some research at the moment into YA thrillers. It fitted the bill quite well. I think it's technically a young adult psychological thriller. But I have to say, it didn't really feel like one. It's kind of different to how most thrillers would feel. There isn't really an active antagonist who is chasing down the lead character. So it's a little bit of an odd one, and I think that's partly why I'm kind of reeling having finished it, because I kind of don't really know how I'm supposed to feel. So the premise of the story is this really wealthy family, the Sinclairs. You've got the granddad, and then you've got his daughters, and they each have their own families with children. And every summer they go to this private island that the grandfather owns, and they each have their own like summer house built onto the island. So they're all spending this vacation together every year as kind of a big extended family unit. And it's kind of exposing what happens when people get ridiculously wealthy and affluent, and it turns toxic. And in that sense, even though it's contemporary, to me it felt like reading The Great Gatsby. It felt like reading a book that was satirical, a book that was exposing wealthy America. And in that sense, like, I thought that was really good about it. There are 4 main teenage characters, and the narration is from one of them, Cadence. We know that she goes there every summer, and we get a story from when she was 15, what happened that summer with her 3 friends. And then there's a kind of break in the narrative, and we find out that she's had quite a serious accident that summer, but she doesn't remember what happened to her. And then 2 years later, she goes back, and she begins to piece back together the events that she had kind of repressed, I suppose, in a kind of amnesia. So the novel's driven forward by us learning along with the character what has happened to her, and what the event was that created this kind of like a brain injury. What I would say is that it does feel a little bit laboured, and I felt like it was making some really good points, and there were aspects of those family situations that I thought were really well drawn, the way that families can so easily turn on each other, and what is meant to be a happy gathering can turn sour very quickly. And I think it did those scenes of conflict really well, and the negative impact it was having on the children. However, I found it really hard to buy into it as a story. I found it really hard to identify with the protagonist, and because we're in her head for the whole story, you can't get away from her. I was told by the students who'd recommended this that it's all about the twist. Now, I don't want to give any spoilers here, so I'm trying to think carefully how I can talk more about it without revealing it. Suffice to say, I found the twist a little bit of a letdown, a little bit of a curveball that to me didn't fit with the story. It didn't fit with the type of story that I felt it was. I didn't like the twist very much, and that for me I think is a key part to enjoying this book. I think the reviews I've read of people who enjoyed the twist, raved about the book, and gave it 5 stars. People who didn't rate the twist rated it as like 0 or 1. So I think this is a book that's going to polarize people's opinions. People are either going to love it or hate it. One reviewer said that the twist made it feel like a lame point horror book, and I think that pretty much sums it up for me too. What I think is a bit difficult is these 4 characters that the whole story pivots around call themselves the Liars, and the book is called We Were Liars. But to me that didn't ring very true. It didn't feel like honestly a name that 4 teenagers would call themselves. The one thing that I thought was really good, which people have commented on, is the use of fairy stories. So the narrative sort of interspersed with these kind of retellings of the famous ingredients of fairy stories, but twisted to apply to the story of the novel. So you've got elements of Beauty and the Beast and other stories, and each time it's retold, that sheds a new light on the story, and I thought that was really well done. Ultimately, for me, one of the most obvious comparisons with this book is American Royals, just because American Royals is about some very rich people in America and some interlocking families. However, I felt like American Royals had a lot more heart, and I felt like overall this book was pretty bleak. I felt like, as I said, I didn't know how to feel at the end, because at the end, when everything's all fitted together again, I still didn't feel happy for the protagonist. I didn't feel a sense of things being made right again, and I sort of felt like I wasn't sure how I should feel about her, and I wasn't sure if I even cared enough about her to care. But overall, I'd say this is an interesting one to read, and it is cool the way that the story unfolds and you sort of piece together the events, but it's a big but. If you don't like surprises, this probably isn't one for you.